Hello to my beautiful patrons. Thanks for paying a little extra dough to see the video version of this. I don't know how much the video is going to bring to the goodies this week, so apologies for that. There is one thing that might be kind of neat to see me look up in real time, though, hence why we've cheated the camera out. I don't know why I say we, like anyone else helps work on this show, but I've cheated the camera out a little bit to capture me Googling something kind of interesting. Anyway, without further ado, I think we should get this thing going. So let me get my beverage popped, and yeah, let's do this thing. The name's Potts. Caractacus Potts. This is where the theme song goes. You're listening to Fix My Carcast, hosted by Bear Claw Billy, and this is episode 60. Comedian and musician Keith Hebert will be attempting re-entry later, but first, housekeeping. This is the show where you pick what I say and how I say it. Pick a topic or prompt by donating to the GoFundMe, and vote on the gimmick by joining my Patreon for just $1 a month. Join at the $5 or higher level and also get bonus episodes and behind the scenes footage. Links are in the description. Also down there, merch. Get yourself some merch. Your mission, should you choose to accept it. Sorry, that's the other one. Anyway, get some merch. Do it. We have a donor this week. Anonymous4 returns with a $10 donation. Thank you so much, Anonymous4. The total raised for paying off my car repair debt is now $1,151. Also, when we get to $2,000, we unlock an automatic show gimmick, which is I will watch all the Fast and Furious movies back to back and then record my podcast at the end. Fun fact, did you know that this whole podcast disappears when we hit $3,000? Imagine being the one to shut this whole thing down. A villain to some, a hero to me. Hey, do you like the theme song? No? Well, if you make a donation of $50 or more, in addition to picking an episode topic, you get to change one thing about the theme song forever. Unless somebody else changes it back. Wouldn't it have been fun to open this episode with a James Bond-style theme song? Well, too late now, but hey, there's always next week. $50 and I do my best, Shirley Bassey. No new patrons this week. Did you know we don't have a single patron named Kenneth? Weird. If any person named Ken or Kenny or Kenneth or Kendall or Kentucky joins my Patreon by the time the next episode is recorded, I will title that episode, Hear Me Out About J.K. Rowling, regardless of the episode topic. Come on, Kenneth, get me on her shitty radar. Now it's time for a topic suggestion. I'll suggest topics I think I could easily talk about for a whole episode, though admittedly I think the show is more fun when it's something I'm completely clueless about. So, something I could talk about is James Bond. Oh, wait, that's funny. That's already what this episode is about. Well, if you want another James Bond episode, donate now. Checking in on the best city in the world, based on which city listened to the last episode the most. And we have a 5-way tie between Biddeford, Maine, Westbrook, Maine, Poland, Maine, Jay, Maine, and Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Ties are broken by whichever city has listened to the most episodes, so our big winner is once again Biddeford, Maine. Congratulations, Biddeford, Maine. Let it be known that your college, Museum of Antiquities, and the Brocas are the best in the world for 7 days. Last episode, I was sick with COVID, so I made sick beats again. You can see a little more behind the scenes of me making said beats over on Patreon. Also, head over to Patreon for a bonus episode where Stamps the Synthetic Australian plays around with ChatGPT to come up with some truly bizarre songs and TV show episodes. I haven't heard it yet, but she told me I might get some emails from whoever owns the X-Files. Or Star Trek. Or the Beatles. Anyway, that's all available to anyone that signs up at the $5 level or higher. Okay, let's talk next week's gimmick poll. These are your choices for next week's episode gimmick. They are drink a gallon of water, the returning gimmick, do it like a guided meditation, do a Carl from Aqua Teen Hunger Force voice, Or call my sister during the show. Let's recap. 1. Drink a gallon of water. 2. Do it like a guided meditation. 3. Do a Carl from Aqua Teen Hunger Force voice. And 4. Call my sister during the show. Be sure to vote over on Patreon. The poll closes Thursday, March 2nd at noon Eastern America time. All right. Time for today's gimmick, which is start a beef with another podcast. Of course, gimmicks don't start until housekeeping is out of the way, just in case any of them prevent me from sharing vital information. But now, we are entering the gimmick zone. From this point on, gimmicks are active and everything is improvised. Today's topic comes to us from Anonymous4 for $10, and I've been asked to talk about all the ways that Chitty Chitty Bang Bang is secretly a James Bond movie. All right. I bet your Wessel? I bet your Wessel's all wit from that one. I bet you got a big old movie boner for that one. But anyway, I need to start a beef with another podcast, so I'm going to get that out of the way first. I realize that's not really something you can do while simultaneously discussing a topic. I mean, maybe it could be, but let me get the beef out of the way first. So initially my idea was, I have a lot of friends with podcasts, so if I started a beef with them, they would know that it's all in good fun. They wouldn't take it seriously. So, you know, I know at least 3 friends that have podcasts, and they are not going to be named on this show unless they pay for it. Yeah, that's right. If you want me to talk about your show, you're going to pay for it. So, not starting a beef with anyone that I know. But believe it or not, Anonymous4 also suggested who I could start a beef with. Now, typically, I don't let people pick the gimmicks, but in this case, I didn't really have an idea. So I was like, hold that thought, because the person he picked, I don't know anything about, nor did I even know they had a podcast. So I decided I'm going to look it up live right now on the show. So if you're watching the video version, you can see the screen in front of me. And the person that I have been told to start a beef with is someone by the name of Markiplier. Now, I have heard this name before, but I don't know who or what a Markiplier is. I'm not going to lie, the first thing I'm looking for is pronouns, because I don't want to get that wrong, because I don't know anything about this Markiplier. He, great. Hey, Markiplier. He's going down. Okay. Jesus Christ. So my next concern was, does Markiplier have more than one podcast? I bet. Well, I'm sure it's not very good. Grrr. Starting a beef with Markiplier. Distractable. No, that doesn't look like. No. How many podcasts is Markiplier in? 2. Distractable, which Markiplier is a producer on. And Go, my favorite sports team, which he hosts with other... Okay, well, right off the bat, I hate sports. So there you go. Though you seem like the kind of person where that's probably what your show is about too. Well, listen here, Go, my favorite sports team. I have had it with your shenanigans, and you will get no endorsement from me. And also, Anonymous4 said that maybe Markiplier will find out about this and have his fans pay the $3,000 to shut my show down. I probably shouldn't have said out loud that that's what the end goal is. But anyway, yeah, Markiplier, there's no way you'll shut me up unless your fans have about a little under $2,000 right now. So there it is. You heard it here first. Go, my favorite sports team. Grrr, that's our rival podcast. You want to be rooting for us, not their team, which again is probably what their show is about. Before I move on, let me see what the hell this podcast actually is. I'm going to guess people just come on and talk about their favorite sports team, but I'd like it a lot more if they just made up fake sports teams. Nope, there's nothing. I do not know what the hell this show is about. Sports commentators you didn't know you needed. Well, I don't need them. Get fucked, Markiplier. It's official now. You officially have a beef with Fix My Podcast, a podcast you have never heard of, way harder than I've never heard of your podcast. All right, we're done beefing. Let's get to the bonding, because holy shit, good to have you back, Anonymous4. Don't know where you went all that time, but glad you're back because you have some great suggestions. Not to say that other people's aren't good, but Anonymous 4 really brings it. First of all, let me turn this screen off because I'm not going to need it anymore. Because I actually watched Chitty Chitty Bang Bang not too long ago, so I could talk about it for the show today. I did not watch any Bond movies because let me tell you what, I know what I'm talking about when it comes to Bond. I would not venture that I am the biggest James Bond expert in the world, not by a long shot, but I am just a fan who's watched the movies since I was a kid. So, this could be a potential spoiler episode. So let me tell you what you're getting into here. I'm going to talk about conventions of James Bond. I'm going to try not to spoil any James Bond plot points. That said, I do need to talk about the movie Chitty Chitty Bang Bang in depth. So if you're worried about spoilers for a children's film from the 60s, it is okay to sit this one out or go watch Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. At the time of this recording, it's on HBO Max. It's like 2 hours and 22 minutes. Yeah, we'll get to that. But yeah, I think I will probably be spoiling a little bit about Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. But you know, it's a children's movie. It's not terribly in-depth. I'll try not to spoil any gags because, you know, I feel like that's not cool. So here's the deal. Before I even started the movie, I was aware of a lot of similarities between Chitty Chitty Bang Bang and the James Bond franchise. Before you ever start the movie, you can just go to IMDb and be like, whoa, there's a lot of Bond people involved in this. So, let me give you the rundown. From my notes, I wrote down what seemed relevant on IMDb, and then I wrote down notes from watching the movie. So, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang came out in 1968. At the time, there were 5 official Bond movies, and we're going to get into what that means in a little bit. Dr. No in 1962, From Russia with Love in 1963, Goldfinger in 1964, Thunderball in 1965, and You Only Live Twice in 1967. So Chitty came out 68, so it was the year after You Only Live Twice. And just for a record on like when Bond picked back up, the very next year after Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, On Her Majesty's Secret Service came out in 1969. Though not with the same actor. All the previous ones had been Sean Connery playing James Bond, and this was the first with George Lazenby, Laserbaby, however you pronounce his name. And I wrote here, it's worth noting that there was another Bond film that came out before Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, and that's Casino Royale in 1967. Now, if all you know of Casino Royale is the Daniel Craig version, you need to know that there is a wildly bizarre movie in 1967 that's a spoof of James Bond, but he's still called James Bond in it. So the whole story here is that like a producer got the rights to the Casino Royale novel, but he couldn't see eye to eye with, I want to say, Eon Productions. Eon Productions at that time. And so they passed on him, and he was like, well, I've still got the rights, so fuck it. So he put it out anyway, but as a parody of James Bond. So like there's like 6 James Bonds in it, and it's just like not good. Like Chitty Chitty Bang Bang is a movie that could use a little like streamlining here and there, but at least it's a coherent story. Like Casino Royale is a fucking mess. But if you want to see Orson Welles do magic tricks, it's your movie. But here is a very interesting thing that I didn't know until today. The director of the 1967 Casino Royale is also the director of 1968's Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. So right off the bat, directed by someone who directed a Bond movie, just not an official one, it's a spoof one. So this would be like if someone directed Austin Powers, and then, you know, got a crack at an actual Bond movie, which I don't think that's happened, but I'd like to see it. So, okay, we haven't even gotten to watching Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. All right, I wrote down some stuff about the history of that version of Casino Royale, because you need to know it. Let's move on. Again, before even starting the movie, you can just look at the credits and see what else is similar. Bond actors are in Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. There are 3 Bond actors, kind of, technically, asterisk. Stay with me. The first actor in Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, who's also in a Bond movie, is Gert Frobe, who played Auric Goldfinger in Goldfinger. He plays Baron Bombburst in Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. So that's the first one. When you see him, you just go, hey, guy from Goldfinger, if you've seen Goldfinger, or if you care. There are times I have to tell myself not everybody's a movie person. The second Bond actor in Chitty Chitty Bang Bang is Desmond Llewellyn, who plays Mr. Coggins. And he played Q in, I had to look this up, 17 Bond movies. Q is, of course, the guy that gives James Bond his gadgets. Oh, have I even, given you an overview of who James Bond is? Okay, so he's an ornithologist. He wrote Birds of the West Indies. Ah ha 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 ha. That one's for the nerds. James Bond, of course, is the super spy secret agent guy played by Sean Connery, George Lazenby, Roger Moore, Timothy Dalton, Pierce Brosnan, Daniel Craig, and then some technical ones nobody cares about. David Niven. Casino Royale. So yeah, Q is by far, if any actor receives some sort of magical charge of power from being in Bond movies, Q is the strongest by far. He's been in 17 of these goddamn things. It's easier to list the movies he's not in. So take the entire run from Connery to Brosnan, not counting the unofficial ones. He's not in Dr. No. He's not in Live and Let Die. He's in every movie up until The World Is Not Enough. Which I had to pause for a minute because his last line in the series makes me cry a little bit because I'm not much of a Bond fan. Always have an escape plan. So he's not in Die Another Day, and then he's not in any of the others, and then they recast Q as Ben Whishaw in the Craig movies. So anyway, all that aside, Desmond Llewellyn, master of James Bond energy, 17 films, and he's always the guy telling you this thing is actually another thing. The third Bond actor in Chitty Chitty Bang Bang is Anna Quayle, who plays Frau Hoffner in Casino Royale. So once again, Casino Royale, not technical, and Baroness Bombburst in Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. So technically only two official Bond actors in Gert Frobe and Desmond Llewellyn, Goldfinger and Q, respectively. No disrespect to Anna Quayle, obviously, just, not an official Bond under any official capacity. So we're not done with the connections to Bond just from the credits, so I probably need to pick up the pace here because I took a lot of notes, you guys. So Ian Fleming wrote Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. Ian Fleming is, of course, the author of the original James Bond novels, and he also wrote the book that Chitty Chitty Bang Bang is based on. The book is technically called Chitty Chitty Bang Bang: The Magical Car. The punctuation, not the word, because bang colon should not be in the title of a children's book. So Ian Fleming did not write the screenplay for Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, but it gets weirder from here because it was written by Roald Dahl of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory fame, and the director, Ken Hughes. But hold the phone, because if you do a little more digging, additional dialogue punch-up on Chitty Chitty Bang Bang was written by Richard Maibaum, baby, who is credited as a writer on 13 Bond movies, including 4 that precede Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. He did not write You Only Live Twice. Also, the movie Chitty Chitty Bang Bang was produced by Albert R. Broccoli, who was producer, co-producer, or executive producer on every Bond movie until he died. It's nuts. I think it goes all the way up to GoldenEye, which I don't know how much of a hand he had in it, but I think it was just kind of a courtesy credit. Okay. That's all I have for cast stuff, cast and crew. We're moving on now to the actual movie, which I had not watched since I was a kid, but I do remember even as a kid, recognizing some of the Bondness. So it's so Bond that even a child can figure out that it's Bond. Okay, and that's the first thing I have written here. Even as a kid, I did point hey, Albert R. Broccoli's name is in the credits. Hey, Ian Fleming. Hey, that's Q. So yeah, even as a kid, I was like, there's a lot of Bond people in this. The movie is 2 hours and 22 minutes. This has nothing to do with my topic. I just thought it would be interesting to point out that makes it 2 minutes longer than On Her Majesty's Secret Service, but it is shorter than the following Bond movies: Skyfall, Casino Royale, Spectre, and No Time to Die, which coincidentally are all Craig's. So why the hell did the Bond movies get so long? Follow-up question, why is a children's movie so long? Okay, so the main character, Caractacus Potts, played by Dick Van Dyke, early on in the movie, he has a jetpack, just like James Bond has in Thunderball. So count it, that's a point for Bondness. He has a secret lab in a windmill, which feels very Bond, though admittedly that would probably be like more of a Q thing. A lot of times in Bond movies, like Bond's traveling and he'll like, I don't know, pass an ice cream shop or something and Q's like, psst, get on in here. That's not a specific reference, but a lot of times Q's lab is like, you know, out in the field, but it's hidden somewhere. So that felt very Bond. Caractacus has a machine that eats carpet, and I suspect James Bond has never eaten carpet. Wink, wink. So that's a point away. That said, Caractacus meets a woman and instantly insults her ability to drive. So I'm going to give it a Bond point because that's some classic misogyny. And I'm sorry to say, old Bond, new Bond, all Bond, let's be honest, has a little misogyny in it. It is the stance of this show that is bad. And we should get that out of there. But it is nevertheless a thing. Also, I know this show is improvised, but I did write notes because I didn't want to miss anything. And now I'm like, I promised myself I'm not just going to read the notes to you. But a lot of these I did kind of write down the way I thought them. The protagonist of Chitty Chitty Bang Bang is English, but he doesn't even attempt an English accent. I'm giving that a Bond point because Sean Karate, my cousin Sean Karate, was not in the James Bond movies, but maybe someday I'll have Sean Karate on the show. Sean Connery, on the other hand, very thick Scottish accent that I won't attempt here, and that's a rarity when I don't try an accent. But Sean Connery has a thick Scottish accent that, much like Gerard Butler, he makes no attempt to hide. Side note, I think Gerard Butler is better when he doesn't hide the accent. Go see Plane. It's in theaters now. So I'm going to give that a Bond point. The actors do not give a shit that they're supposed to be English. And on that subject, brief detour. Speaking of accents, Dick Van Dyke is, of course, in this, and a movie where he does attempt a British accent, or an English accent, a Cockney accent, technically, is Mary Poppins, which came out before Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, and his voice is terrible. But Mary Poppins is relevant here, not just because of Dick Van Dyke, but because the Sherman Brothers wrote all the songs in Mary Poppins, and all the songs in Chitty Chitty Bang Bang have that same feel. Like watching it a lot, I'd be like, oh, this is giving me a Mary Poppins vibe. Oh, that's why. It's the same songwriters. That said, the music in this never ever really approaches James Bond style. So I'm not going to give it a Bond point for music. The music is very whimsical. It's great music. I really like the songs in this movie. I hadn't watched it in so long, but they're very catchy, and I'm a big fan. But Bondy, they are not. They are not Bondian. Okay, so there's a subplot about a candy company in Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, and it felt very Roald Dahl and less Ian Fleming, but then I remembered, oh yeah, Roald Dahl wrote this. So I feel like the movie is very Bondy, but it definitely feels like some other things too, and one of those things it feels like is Willy Wonka. Okay. So Caractacus Potts' love interest is named Truly Scrumptious. Fuck off. That is the most G-rated you can make a Bond girl name. If you've never seen a James Bond movie, depends on the era you're watching. I feel like they kind of avoided this, in the Craig era. But every single woman in a Bond movie, her name is a sexual innuendo. And I gotta say, Truly Scrumptious, that's... Man, oh man, that's one for the kids to not get, for the parents to go, oh. But yeah, if you're gonna make a G-rated Bond girl name, that's definitely the one over, like, Plenty O'Toole or Pussy Galore or Holly Goodhead. Why am I a fan of this again? Moving on. Okay, so while I was watching the movie, I thought I had exhausted everything from the cast and crew connections to Bond, but check this out, because this blew my mind watching the movie. During the candy factory scene, I did think, I wonder if this is the same set designer who designed all the Bond villain layers. Because if you've never seen an old Sean Connery Bond movie, the sets are gorgeous. Like the villain layers are so like elaborate and complex, but they've got like this really cool, swanky 60s style. So I was like, what was that guy's name? Because I am a Bond fan to a point, but I couldn't remember the set designer's name off the top of my head. So I look him up, and his name is Ken Adam, and he's worked on many, many Bond films, but he's worked on a lot of other movies, one of which is called, how do you pronounce this? Chitty Bang Bang Boom! So here's the deal. He worked on the movie, but he did not design the sets. However, he designed Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. That's right. He designed the car that's in the movie. So another Bond point, because you got Ken Adam. I should have typed this instead of handwriting because I cannot read my own handwriting. It is atrocious. Let's move on because I have 4 more pages. So I had genuinely forgotten that there is a foot chase in Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. And it involves running through a carnival and Caractacus Potts, the inventor, having to put on several disguises. So that feels like something out of a Bond movie. I feel like there are scenes like all the way through the Craig era even, where he just like, is wearing like a mask or a costume or something to get away from someone or to go undercover. So I'm going to give it a Bond point for that, just having a foot chase at a carnival involving disguises. I think... Oh, okay. So this is me midway through the movie just saying that so far the movie doesn't feel completely James Bond. It feels like James Bond, Willy Wonka, and Mary Poppins in a blender. So that's my assessment. And then side note, because it's me... sorry I'm off topic here, but I gotta indulge myself a little bit here. The mad scientist has a flying car, a breakfast machine, and a dog named after a scientist. I'm thinking maybe this inspired the writers of Back to the Future? So we're gonna say James Bond, Willy Wonka, Mary Poppins, Back to the Future in a blender, though technically Back to the Future came out after, so it's just inspired by. But it's got that same DNA. I wrote here, I never noticed as a kid that Chitty Chitty Bang Bang's engine noises are perfectly synced to the theme song. So when they go to sing Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, the car is going... And as a kid, I never noticed it's perfectly synced with the rest of the music. So this was really a case of like, I don't know if this was sound design or music. I don't know who did that, but it's perfectly timed with it, and I never caught that as a kid. And I'm gonna put that in the Bond column because in the movie License to Kill, there is a scene where bullet ricochets make the James Bond theme. License to Kill, the gritty, serious ones from the Dalton era. But there is a scene. Yeah, go watch that movie, and when you hear the bullets go ding, 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 you're like, what the hell? Like, I remember my brain like flipping over backwards, like, who made that call in the edit? So anyway, I'm giving that a Bond point because a sound effect is incorporated into the music. So I'm giving that a Bond point. This one's interesting, just something I never would have gotten as a kid, but Truly Scrumptious's license plate says Cub1, C-U-B-1, which may be a reference to producer Albert R. Broccoli, whose nickname was Cubby, which I know now, but I did not know as a child. So I'm wondering if that's a reference to the producer. Apropos of nothing, I love Dick Van Dyke. He's a real hoot, and I don't know why I waited so long to rewatch this movie, because he is great in it. Okay, for more Bond points, Gert Frobe was dubbed in Goldfinger because he had such a thick German accent that it was hard to understand what he was saying. So they dubbed him in Goldfinger, and they also dubbed him in Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, but it was a different actor. Michael Collins provided his voice in Goldfinger, and Roger C. Carmel in Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. But nevertheless, Gert Frobe has been dubbed. I'm going to count that in the Bond column. So that's a Bond point. Chitty Chitty Bang Bang turns into a boat. Roger Moore Bond has a car that turns into a submarine and a boat that turns into a car, famously known as a bondola, which will make drunks stop drinking and will make birds do double takes. So I'm going to count that. That's, by the way, the car into a submarine is Spy Who Loved Me, and the boat into a car is Moonraker, the Bondola. The villain has henchmen. That's a pretty simple thing. Most villains have henchmen, but nevertheless, they are undercover spies, to be specific. So I feel like spies chasing the main character, we're going to put that in the Bond column. I noted here, James Bond's dad was never kidnapped via Zeppelin. So no points in the Bond column there, though there is a blimp in A View to a Kill, which is post-Chitty, if I need to be stating which ones are pre-Chitty and post-Chitty. Chitty Chitty Bang Bang sprouts wings and flies. This had not happened in any Bond films up to this point, but eventually there is a car with wings in The Man with the Golden Gun. That's a Roger Moore. That comes after Chitty. At one point, Baron Bombburst threatens to stuff someone's head with sauerkraut and feed them to dogs. I'm putting that in the Bond column because that sounds like something a Bond villain would do. Bond villains love feeding people to animals. Caractacus and co. disguise themselves as Jack-in-the-Box clowns. Roger Moore disguises himself as a clown in Octopussy. Say this 5 times fast. Octopussy, a post-Chitty Bond. Octopussy, a post-Chitty Bond. Octopussy, a post-Chitty Bond. Anyway, Roger Moore donning the clown makeup, so I'm going to put that in the Bond column. Chitty Chitty Bang Bang has an ejector seat. Yes, the car has an ejector seat in the back, and that is, of course, also a major plot point in Goldfinger. Ejector seat, you're joking. I never joke about my work, 007. The music never really feels Bondy. I just noted that a second time. The whole movie, I was actually hoping to pick which song in Chitty Chitty Bang Bang sounds the most like a Bond theme, and the answer is none of them. Nothing really comes close. It's just not the same vibe, but I was checking throughout. Caractacus has to save a dungeon full of children, and Bond almost never has to save children. Just an observation that I had. I do believe the only time I can recall where he has had to rescue a child is in No Time to Die, the most recent Bond movie. There may be a scene that's not coming to mind where he has to like push a kid out of the way or something, but yeah, I'm not really... If somebody walked up to me right now and said, name all the famous kids in Bond movies, I'd be like, the one J.W. Pepper shoves off a boat and No Time to Die. So yeah, not really a thing in Bond movies. Oh, okay, so I wrote this down. Chuchi face. So Baron Bombburst and Baroness Bombburst have a toxic relationship. Baron Bombburst does not like his completely loving and really hot wife. Don't know where this is coming from. So Chuchi face is a weirdly kinky sequence where they are whispering sweet nothings to each other. They're straight up seducing each other. She's wearing like a kinky little bedroom outfit, but the whole sequence he's trying to secretly kill her without getting caught. And I just had a moment of like, okay, musically this is not a Bond song, but most Bond songs are about fucking and killing. They're more subtle about it. They're usually love songs, but inevitably there's a line about shoot me, kill me, don't die tonight, come home without bullet holes in you. If I wrote a Bond song, that's what I'd call it. Come home without bullet holes in you. Oh man, for $50, that's the new theme song. Come home without bullet holes in you. Okay. So yeah, the Chuchi face sequence. In addition to having kind of the themes of a Bond song, but not the sound of it. There's all kinds of kinky shit, especially in the novels. I feel like the movies need to be a little more sanitized, but in the novels, there's some disturbingly kinky shit in there. Problematically so, I will say. Buyer beware. Also, the sauna scene in GoldenEye has very I'm trying to seduce you, but also I'm trying to kill you vibes. So count it, put it in the Bond column. That's some real murder fucking. Dick Van Dyke. He has to sneak into the villain's lair, disguised as a clown a second time, by the way. Which I don't know if that's another Bond point, but he disguises himself as a clown twice. So he has to sneak in and he has to coordinate a bunch of stuff with other people. I feel like that's not really Bond's way. There are definitely moments in the movies where he has to make a plan with someone. So I feel like this is maybe like a Bond half point. Because he typically is more of a blunt instrument. He's more drive a tank through something than he is, be like super sneaky and cautious about getting somebody out. No, he's going to blow the whole lair up and get the hell out of there. He also doesn't usually disguise himself when confronting the main villain. He's more of a just, guess you caught me, I'll take a drink. And the villain is usually like, yeah, okay, man, sit down, let me tell you my plan, because these movies are stupid. I've never really understood that one. You're a spy, you're undercover, man. And yeah, I wrote here, Bond tends to be a blunt instrument rather than planning and sneakery. It's a mix. I'm going to go half Bond point there. Oh, and I did write, the villain's lair is still standing at the end of Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, 0 Bond points. Bond almost always blows up the villain's lair or, destroys it in some fashion. Sometimes they don't even bother to tell you how. Sometimes it's just, you're defeated. Oh no, the place is crumbling for some reason. Let's get out of here. Okay, and then I wrote to myself, apologize for the Back to the Future thing. At one point, Caractacus Potts says, I invented something that actually works, and there's totally a line in Back to the Future where Doc says, I finally invent something that works. I'm just throwing it down now. The writers of Back to the Future were definitely inspired by Chitty Chitty Bang Bang specifically. I think at this point there's no way around it. I know George Pal's The Time Machine from 1960 was another big influence, and I've also seen an interview with them saying Superman comics. Superman inspired them to tell a time travel story. So, there's your Back to the Future trivia in the James Bond Chitty Chitty Bang Bang episode. Because when you talk to me, you're going to get Back to the Future trivia. That's how it works. Sorry. At the end, I said, this movie gets 1 grease point because the car flies off at the end without any explanation. Now, this may be a little bit spoilery, but Chitty Chitty Bang Bang never actually turns into a boat or turns into an airplane. That doesn't actually happen in the movie. A good portion of the movie is actually the dad, Caractacus Potts, telling a story. So technically, when Chitty Chitty Bang Bang flies off at the end, that is a grease. That is we're flying into the sky with no explanation, unless you think that maybe the power of love did it. Hey, that brings us back to the Future. Anyway, more movies with flying cars, am I right? In conclusion, I did not make any official tally, but Chitty Chitty Bang Bang contains a whole lot of Bond, some Back to the Future, a dash of Wonka and Poppins, and 1 grease. As always, you're going down, Markiplier. Anyway, thanks for being a patron. I hope that was worth every penny, and I don't love you. That's the important part. You mean nothing to me other than someone who supports me. But in that regard, I think you're super swell. But remember, you don't know me personally. Always important to remember. All right, take care of yourself because, you're still a human. And I like that. I like that you're a human. But you don't know me. This is not the screen separates don't get obsessed with me. You can get a little obsessed with me.